All right. Hello, everyone. And thank you so much for joining. I'm going to go ahead and get started here. You're here for today's demonstration of synchronizing work order updates from IBM Maximo to Esri ArcGIS in near real time with the Geonexus Integration Platform. My name is Katie Majewski, and I'm a marketing coordinator here at Geonexus, and I'm happy to be joined by Josh Swenson, our VP of Revenue Operations, to help me address some of the questions you might be having at the end of the demonstration today. Today, I'm going to be showing a recorded demonstration from Umesh Menon, our VP of Strategic Product Management, featuring the new near real-time functionality within the platform. Umesh will provide a detailed overview of the demo in his portion, but at a high level, we'll explore modifications made by a user to a work order in Maximo, and then observe how these changes are seamlessly reflected into GIS in near real time. One quick housekeeping note before we get started is if you have any questions throughout the demo, please feel free to type them into the Q&A panel on the right-hand side of your user interface. We've carved a bit of time in the end to address any questions that come through, but if for some reason we're up against time and we don't get to everyone's questions today, we'll be sure to follow up with you directly afterward. Before we dive into the demo today, I'm going to set a quick foundation of who we are for those of you who might not be familiar with Geonexus. Geonexus is a software company, and our focus has been on simplifying enterprise integration for organizations across the globe. Our product, the Geonexus Integration Platform, also known as GIP, redefines the custom code approach to integration by providing users with a fully supported, easy-to-use, proven platform for system integration. GIP is a true middleware solution that sits between the end systems, connecting them with a low-code, no-code approach. This simplifies the configuration and management of your integrations across the enterprise. Additionally, this significantly reduces the costs and maintenance associated with tightly coupled, code-heavy solutions of the past. So there's really three main components to the Geonexus Integration Platform. The first is simplified configuration. Setting up an integration is easy. You just follow a few basic steps. So first you would open the user interface, then you would enter some basic login credentials to connect each end system. In this case, it's Maximo and GIS, and then you would configure your data sets. Once the data sets are set up, you would set up your synchronization rules by selecting items from a drop-down menu. For more complex integrations, there are areas to set up more advanced synchronization rules as well. This streamlines integration setup, maintenance, and management throughout the entire lifecycle of the integration. It also allows for additions or modifications to be made on the fly with little to no code required. The second is automated synchronization. So once your systems are connected in the platform, we can help you automate and schedule your synchronization on a specified task. If you have a system of record established already or would like to set one, we can also synchronize your data bi-directionally as well if you'd like. And then the last is active reporting. So once you've configured your integration and you have your synchronization running on a schedule, we provide in-depth reports every time the synchronization runs to show that everything has gone as intended. Some of the benefits GIP's reporting can provide are detailed descriptions of any errors, orphans, discrepancies, and more that may have occurred. How we simplify integration even further is through our extensive library of connectors as shown on the screen below. Each one of these connectors understands the unique business logic of each system and are constantly upgraded to allow you to take advantage of the latest and greatest system features with no fears of software version lock or downtime. So now that you've heard a bit about Geonexus, I'll dive right into the demonstration.
My name is Umesh Menon. I oversee the product vision and strategy at Geonexus. I'm thrilled to be here today to talk about our new near real-time functionality. So a little bit about setting the stage with the demo. The demo I'm planning to go through is from the perspective of changes applied by a user to a work order in Maximo. So these changes are then updated in near real time into GIS by GIP. So in this demo, I plan to show the following. overview of the application, assign, and within the demo scenarios, the first thing would be assigning a hydrant asset to a work order in Maximo, and then seeing that reflected on the GIS map. Second thing would be to update the work order with a different hydrant asset in Maximo, and then seeing that reflected on the GIS map. And then lastly, updating the work order with a new status in Maximo, and then seeing that reflected on the GIS map. And this is all being done in near real time. Before I get into the demo specifics, let me take you through a quick orientation of the GIP application. On the left side, we have the Project Explorer. This is where you access the different functions to configure and execute the synchronization. The first two items here, the console and reports, are around execution of that synchronization. And then the items below that are all around configuration. First thing you're going to do is set up connections. So here I have a Esri geodatabase connection set up and a Maximo REST connection. And just to show you, if you right click on connection, you'll see a host of other connections that we have in terms of our productized connectors and RDBMS and REST connection capability. Once your connections are set up, the next thing you're going to do is start configuring your data sets. And the data sets is where we apply our rules and mappings for the synchronization. Think of a data set as essentially a container of data where you're going to do your processing. So the first step is setting up data sources. So here I have a geodatabase data source setup that's looking at a specific table within Esri, this MXWO hydrant issues table. And then I have a work orders data source setup that's looking at the work orders entity. And I'm specifically looking at a work order, this work order 1031 for demo purposes. As I go down, once my data sources are set up, I now go into my synchronization rules, and this is where I apply the mappings between source and target. So here for the GDB data source, I have one updated rule set up, and these are my mapping rules that are set up against that updated rules. So just to orient you here, the left side is around my source, data source details. So I'm sending data from work orders to GIS for this demo. So here are my work orders. Here I'm selecting an attribute, and these are all the different fields that I'm mapping from the attribute side. As I go into the target side, the attribute types are all fields, and these are all the different attributes that I'm mapping to. So just to give an example of what this looks like, if I look into my status mapping, if I open this up, you can see that what GIP is doing is actually looking into Maximo and pulling all those related fields out, all those attributes that are corresponding to the work orders table. So we can select any of those. And likewise on the GIS side, if I click on this dropdown, I've got a host of fields here I can select that's looking at the table that I've defined in my data source. So that's as simple as it is to do the mappings within GIP. Talking about near real time specifically, if I go into my dataset properties, this is where we have set up the near real time. So if I open up my near real time panel here and I look at geodatabase, my geodatabase data source, what I have set up for near real time is I'm looking at the system change tracking. And in the Esri case, I'm looking at editor tracking. So this is the create date and last edited date on the table. And every time near real time runs through, it's going to look to see if there's been a change to the date, to the created date or the last edited date, to know whether or not a change occurred to that record. Now, if you're not using editor tracking, that's when the custom change tracking comes into play, and you can now add your row and you can add the fields that you want to detect changes on. And as you're doing that, the where clause viewer will also get updated, so you can see exactly what you're configuring as you're selecting those fields. Likewise, if I go into my Maximo data source, I'm also using my system change tracking of change date, which will most likely be what most Maximo users will use. And right now I'm checking on the MBO change date, spec change date, related change date. So if there's any changes to any of these, GIP will pick that up when it runs through and loops through near real time. And again, you have that same capability here. If there's some other mechanism you want to use for change tracking, you can custom that and add that in. Also, part of this is the ability to disable and enable near real-time mode. So if I click disable NRT, you'll see that the icon goes away. If I enable near real-time, you'll see that the icon comes back. And this is how the application knows that this data set is in near real-time mode. Let me open up the console. See this. This is the console is where you actually perform execution of the synchronization. So I'll click start here. So this is going to kick off the a manual near real-time run. And it knows it's near real-time because I've checked this box that's run in near real-time mode. If I uncheck this, it'll run in the full compare mode. And when we're running in near real-time mode, it's going to look through all the data sets that we have set up and look for those ones that have near real-time enabled with that icon, and it's going to run through. So that's the console view. Let me open up the reports view as well. So every time it runs through, you're going to get a report. The first time it runs, there's always one report. If there's no changes, you don't get a report. So if I open up the PDF report here, I'll look at the final status. Let me just make this a little bit bigger so you can see. This is the first time I ran. It didn't detect any changes, so there's nothing here that's showing up. If I go down, for those that are not familiar with the report, this is our PDF report that comes out every time a synchronization executes. We've got these nice bookmarks so you can jump between different tabs within the report itself. I'm looking for updates, so let me go to my updates. Again, nothing happened on that first run. I had not performed any changes yet, so you won't see anything. So let me close that out. I'll now open up my GIS map. All right, so let me orient you to the GIS map that I have set up. So this is my water distribution network, and I'm focused around these two hydrants right now. So you can see the symbologies I'm using for the hydrants, my in-service hydrants. I also have another layer here for the hydrant issue work orders. I'm using these triangles, and the different colors represent the different statuses related to that work order. So in the first scenario, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my Maximo work order, and I'm going to go to work order 1031 and an existing work order that's there. And I'm going to add in that asset, attach that asset to this work order. So I'm going to look for hydrant 393. There it is. And then I'm going to click save. And then that should then activate the change that's happening with GIP reading that. If I pan the map, I should see the work order has now been added to that hydrant. And you can see it's a red one. That means it's waiting on approval. Now your field crew has gone out and they're inspecting and trying to find what the issue is. And what they've determined is that this hydrant's actually not the issue. It's another hydrant. It's the one next to it. That's the issue. So we need to make a change on the work order to attach the right hydrant. So if I go back into Maximo, I can go update that and attach the correct hydrant to the work order. I'm going to select 395, select that, save the record. Now the change date's been updated on that. And if I go back to my GIS map and just pan it, I should see that now that hydrant's been moved from 393 to 395. So here's my work order. It's on the right hydrant. And now what we're going to do is we're going to change the status in Maximo. So let me go ahead and change the status of that work order from waiting on approval to approved. And I'm going to click OK. There it goes. It's been saved. And let me go to my map. And I'm going to pan my map just to refresh it. I should see that my red triangle is now changed to green as the approved, as an approved work order now. So all those changes that I made, I made them in Maximo. We went to the map. Those were all happening. GIP is orchestrating those movements in the background, sending that data over to GIS so that you can see that. There's nothing that you need to initiate except for the initial near real-time run. This is all running in the background, sending data. And this can go the other way as well if you have it set up that way too. All while that's happening, just to bring you back into GIP for a second, every time that change was made, and I'm just refreshing the report screen so you can see, we went over the first report, but every time a change was made and it made that change, a report was created. And I'm just going to click on these so you can see that yourself. You can see that the GDB data source, there is one record count with that change. If I go down to my update section, here's the update that happened for work order 1031. I'm sending the shape, data, asset num, location over to the shape, MX asset num, MX location in GIS. Here are the values that got populated. Here's my spatial data, as well as my attribution that got updated with 393, which allowed that point to be created on the GIS map. The next update that I did was changing the asset on that work order. So if I go to my final status, you'll see there was one record that was updated there. And if you go to updates, you'll see that my spatial data changed, right? And that's when the point moved, and it moved from 393 to 395. And the last update that I made was changing the status. Let me open that up. Again, one update was made. If I go to my update section, you can see that I'm sending the status field from Maximo over to the work order status field in GIS. My old value was waiting for approval. The new value is approval, and that's the change that was made. All right, and that concludes what I wanted to show for the demo today. Thank you.
All right, we'll go ahead and open it up for questions now. Again, as a reminder, I've brought in Josh Swenson, our VP of Revenue Operations, to help me answer some of your questions. And just while I give you a little bit of time to type in your questions, if you have any recommendations on future topics for demonstrations and such, we have been hosting these monthly throughout the year, and they've really just been a great way to kind of have some of your questions addressed without having to have, a formal conversation with one of the members of our teams. There will be a survey after the demo, so if you prefer to type that into the survey afterward, you could go ahead and feel free. But for now, I am going to pass it over to Josh for questions. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Katie. Yeah, so as Katie said, I think to begin with, feel free to load any questions that you have into the Q&A interface, if you will, through WebEx. And so go ahead and drop those in, and I'll do my best to answer them as they come in. One question that we got in the midst of the demo here is just about the reporting. It was towards the end. Umesh showed off some reporting in in the recording that was there. The question is around the types of reporting that's there and a little more information about the reporting. So for any of you that are customers, we often have customers that are on, that join these type of demos just to learn more about the functionality within the platform and new functionality. You're aware of the power of this reporting for organizations that we talk to, that are maybe making a decision around building an integration or looking for a different path to some of the manual processes, or even custom integrations they have. The reporting becomes kind of a key element of what we offer, right? And really the piece that's important there is that this reporting gives visibility into how the integration is running, and for a lot of organizations that doesn't exist through something that's custom built or through other integration solutions that they're using. And so the reporting and this readout that you get on a nightly basis through Geonexus is key, right? Typically what we hear is after we go through initial setup and we run the first report, it's the first time they have visibility into how whatever they had before was working, and they really see for the first time a clear picture of what their data looks like, right? And so it's key. And so what that looks like in the platform is it does provide you with a PDF readout on a nightly basis. So it'll highlight things like updates, creates, deletes, and it'll, not only show you, the specific around that, that particular create or update or delete or whatever it is that's happened during the synchronization run, but it'll also give you some understanding of exactly what happened there, right? So it gives you kind of an understanding that, hey, there was a create and this is what it looked like, right? Another aspect of reporting that we offer is issue and error notification. So, what I just detailed there is the nightly readout, right? The nightly PDF that comes to you, and lets you know what happened during that synchronization run. But if there's an error that occurs, over the course of business, over the course of a day, depending on, when you've scheduled this report, and who it goes to, if something occurs kind of as the synchronization is working and as the integration is working, you'll get a notification. So we'll send out email notifications for any error or issue that occurs. And again, there's a level of detail that goes along with those. And this is key because, it helps you understand if something failed, if something's not running the way that you intended it to run, the way that you have configured it to run, the platform will help you know. And we found this to be key based on communications from customers also, just because in the past it was, somebody raises a flag and says, hey, we think something is broken. We don't know exactly where. They do some digging. Eventually they figure out that it's with their integration solution that they have in place. And so, these notifications that we send out can save a lot of steps in kind of troubleshooting. They're not going to, it doesn't automate the fix of the problem necessarily, but it definitely allows you to get a head start through, making you aware of the problem as it occurs. So, and then the type of files that we send, we do send PDF files. There are some other ways that we can send it. One of the use cases that we've seen through like XML files is the ability to load this into other tools so that you can kind of pair the data with other data that you have, or pair the report with other reporting that you're doing. And so we do have some flexibility around that, that we can share different types of files to help you with that if that's something you're looking to do. So kind of a broad overview around reporting. The next piece around near real time, there's really two questions I'll answer here at once. It is, the systems that this will work for, where do we have near real time functionality in the Geonexus Integration Platform? And then the other question is around use cases, right? Where are we seeing this used in the market and how is this being used? So in terms of the systems that we have right now, we have near real time in our Esri connector and near real time in our Maximo connector, as Umesh laid out in the video. For SAP, we have completed development on this and it's going through final testing. We're looking at a release of SAP near real time in early Q3 is the hope and the word from the team that is working on that. So we're kind of putting the final touches on that, and that'll be a big advancement with our SAP connector there if you're looking at integration between GIS and SAP. And so, so that's those are kind of the systems. And then the use cases, that we've seen is really kind of I'll put it in the category of segmentation of data, right? So one of the things that we're seeing more and more with organizations that we're working with is, that they're really digging into how data needs to be synchronized. Like, what is the importance of synchronizing certain data at a certain frequency, and then what is the importance, or maybe not the same level of importance of synchronizing other data at a certain frequency, right? And so what that means kind of out in the wild is that we have organizations that are coming in and as they kind of parse through their data and as they look at, the impact of systems of running synchronizations, they kind of categorize data as critical and non-critical, right? And so they're looking at the non-critical data and saying, it's okay if we schedule this to synchronize, on a nightly basis, maybe it's a weekly basis, maybe it's a monthly basis, right? And so they're kind of pulling out that non-critical data or less critical data and saying, we're fine with this running with less frequency. And then they're looking at critical data and really leveraging this near real-time functionality that we've gone through and saying, I need this to run with more frequency. I need this updating with more frequency. And I think as you listen to that answer, you can probably start to think about some of the use cases, some of your processes that require data to be updated more frequently. And so that's the real use case that's being leveraged here, is around critical processes and critical data. And I think the thing that I've found interesting in these conversations and working with potential customers on these and working with Umesh and team, as they kind of line up solutions, and even with our implementation team as we go through workshops and we talk with organizations about how their data is structured and what needs to be done in terms of synchronization. I think this has given another level of kind of thinking through how you want your integration to be set up, right? And so we're having great conversations with organizations. Typically the answer has been, well, we want it all as fast as we can get it, right? And as we enter into these workshops and as our functionality around data segmentation and frequency has grown, we're really, hearing organizations challenge themselves to think about what data really needs to be updated. And because they're able to kind of bucket this into less critical and more critical based on their processes, it's really helping with not only kind of the thinking around these processes and what synchronization or integration needs they need around them, but also impacting performance in certain areas as well, and improving performance as they segment the data in certain ways. So, that's really kind of the conversations and the thinking and the use cases we're seeing around near real time out in the market. So, a couple of good questions there. I'll leave it at that, and Katie, I'll turn it back over to you, and you can kind of close us out here as we move towards the 1:30 mark Eastern time.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for answering those questions for me. So here's our information if you have any additional questions or you would like to recommend a future topic. Again, there will be a survey after the demo if you prefer to write your questions or topic recommendations there. But I hope everyone has a great day, and we will see you next month to cover an SAP to GIS integration use case.